This case happened in the United States of America because of Sabrina Tuning. Sabrina was born on October 27, 1994, in Cleveland, Ohio, USA, to Susan Edwards and Mark Tuning. Sabrina's parents led an antisocial lifestyle, so from the age of 3, she was raised by her paternal grandmother. At the age of 4, Sabrina was diagnosed with Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, ADHD, due to a nervous system disorder. As she grew older, it became harder and harder for Sabrina to control herself. Her impulsive behavior constantly led to conflicts with those around her and fights with classmates. Due to her repeated outbursts of aggression, Sabrina was separated from her grandmother at age 14 and placed in a shelter under the jurisdiction of the Lake County Child Services Department. Sabrina spent the next 2 years in the shelter until, in 2011, at the age of 16, she was adopted by the Newfall family and moved into their home in a Cleveland suburb. Sabrina's adoptive mother was named Lisa Newfall. Lisa was a woman with a kind heart, someone who genuinely loved children and wanted to help others. She was born on May 2, 1971, to Clark and Rita in the town of Reynoldsburg. In 2000, Lisa moved to Lake County, where she later started a family with a man named Kevin Newfall and became the mother of 2 daughters, Megan, the elder, and Haley, the younger. Lisa worked in social services in the Department of Juvenile and Family Affairs in Cuyahoga County, Ohio. One day, she realized her dream and opened her own children's home, and that was when she adopted Sabrina. Life in the new family had a positive impact on Sabrina. As a high school student, she suddenly became interested in studying, started to get good grades, and began making plans for her future. One day, Sabrina confessed to her adoptive parents that she dreamed of becoming a model and studying cosmetology. Lisa and Kevin were thrilled with the progress of their once troubled daughter and noted how well she got along with them and their own daughters. A particularly warm bond developed between Sabrina and Lisa. Relatives and friends of the family often said the two looked more like sisters than mother and daughter. Sabrina would often say that she admired Lisa, saw her as a role model, and even truly considered her an older sister. Unfortunately, the family's harmony didn't last long. Problems began 6 months after Sabrina arrived in her new home. Suddenly, she started accusing Lisa of not loving her enough and of giving more attention to her biological daughters. As the relationship between mother and daughter deteriorated, Sabrina and Kevin grew closer. Her relationship with her adoptive father strengthened each day until friends and family began noticing their suspicious behavior. The conversations and jokes exchanged between Sabrina and Kevin sounded more like those of lovers. On October 27, 2012, Sabrina turned 18. By law, she was supposed to start living independently and leave her adoptive family's home. For a while, Sabrina asked her adoptive parents to let her stay a bit longer so she could peacefully finish high school. On November 16, 2012, around 1 o'clock in the morning, Sabrina picked up a knife, crept into Lisa's bedroom, and approached her bed. For 15 long minutes, she stood silently, watching Lisa sleep. And then, she began striking her, again and again, with a 10-inch kitchen knife, its serrated blade tearing through her. Lisa woke up with the first blows and began to scream in agony. Her cries soon reached Megan, Lisa's biological daughter, who was only 13 at the time. Hearing her mother's voice, she ran to the bedroom and saw Sabrina standing there, knife in hand. Terrified, Megan immediately ran to call emergency services, and through her screams and sobs, she told them her sister was trying to kill her mother.
911, what is your emergency? What is going on? Hello?
My mom was a knife. She's shooting her.
Who has a knife?
My sister.
Where is your sister?
Quick!
What? I got everyone coming to you, honey. Where is your sister?
The police arrived quickly, but it was already too late. Upon arrival, officers found Sabrina. Her body showed a few shallow cuts, and in her hand, she still held the knife she had used in the attack. Lisa lay nearby, covered in blood. Sabrina seemed to be in a state of shock, but complied precisely with every command from the officers. An officer named Randy Mullenix ordered her to drop the knife and put her hands behind her head, and she did exactly that. Although Sabrina did not resist being arrested, she refused to answer any of the officers' questions at the police station. Meanwhile, police officers completed a search of the house and found Lisa's youngest daughter locked in one of the closets. That night, Kevin, the girl's father, wasn't home. He had been on a work trip. Kevin, a truck driver, learned of his wife's fate only after receiving a call from the police. A few minutes after the call, Kevin phoned 911 to ask about the condition of his daughters. He was told that he could come to the police station the next day to pick them up. Kevin arrived the following day, and during his visit, officers noted how unnaturally calm he was. The police expected a man shattered by the horror that had happened to his wife, but he remained unfazed. He simply collected his daughters, asked almost no questions, and left quietly. This behavior alarmed the police, as well as relatives and friends of the couple, who couldn't believe Kevin could stay so composed after what had happened. Soon, Kevin attempted to visit Sabrina in jail to get permission to speak with her, as she was held in custody. This time, his calm finally broke. He grew furious when he was denied access to see and talk with her, and left in a terrible mood. News of the horrific crime quickly shook the local media. Lake County Police reported that the victim had been inflicted with a total of 178 stab wounds, including injuries to the head, neck, torso, and limbs. Although investigators initially had no doubt about the identity of the killer, they still struggled to determine a possible motive. The 10 months following the incident were spent piecing together every bit of evidence. Police also gave close attention to the nature of the relationship between Sabrina and Kevin, which seemed suspicious to them. In the first round of questioning possible witnesses, detectives learned that Sabrina had confided to a social worker friend that she had allowed Kevin to take nude photos of her for money. A week before the crime, Kevin himself contacted that same social worker, telling her that he and his wife were considering divorce, but still wanted to keep custody of their foster daughter. And finally, one of Sabrina's friends testified to investigators that, in early October 2012, Kevin had asked her to help him find a hitman. This information led police to suspect that Kevin was also involved in the murder and had helped plan it. Detectives also discovered that Kevin had taken out 2 life insurance policies on his wife's life, totaling $800,000. Just hours after she was declared dead, he began making a huge number of purchases. Initially, Sabrina denied that Kevin had anything to do with the murder. However, after spending 9 months in custody, in August 2013, Sabrina felt that her adoptive father wanted nothing more to do with her, and she agreed to help investigators by telling them what led to the terrible crime. Sabrina accused Kevin of planning Lisa's murder in advance and shared concrete details of their relationship. She claimed that the reason for killing her foster mother was her own love for Kevin and her unwillingness to share him with anyone else. Sabrina revealed that their romantic relationship began in March 2012, when Kevin once came home utterly exhausted after long hours driving his truck. He told her that his feet hurt, and Sabrina offered to massage them. From that day on, their mutual attraction grew, until, by September of that year, they had become regular lovers. Sabrina also claimed that Lisa never suspected their affair, as they were always cautious. Kevin kept sending Sabrina a flood of messages on her phone, telling her that he no longer loved Lisa and that he wanted to start a new life with her. He revealed his plan to Sabrina and promised her a worthy life together in the future with the money from the insurance. Kevin told her he'd buy them a house, a car, and that Sabrina could even take on the role of mother to his daughters. According to Sabrina, she didn't want to take her foster mother's life and suggested that Kevin simply get a divorce. But Kevin replied that if he did that, Lisa would take his daughters away from him. He also often joked, saying that Lisa was worth a lot more dead than alive. And so, Kevin's idea of getting rid of his wife began to take shape. The lovers decided that Sabrina would stab her to death, steal some jewelry, and make it look like a botched robbery gone tragically wrong, ending in the homeowner's murder. Kevin purchased the knife needed for the killing and even taught Sabrina where to strike to cause the most harm. He also warned her that, if she were ever arrested, she should pretend to be mentally unstable. Sabrina later told investigators what had ultimately triggered her to commit the murder. On the morning of November 15th, just a day before the crime, as Kevin was driving her to school, he suddenly stopped the car and began to cry. Kevin told Sabrina that he and Lisa had had a terrible fight the night before, and that he would just end his own life if his wife remained alive. Fearing that the man she loved might harm himself, Sabrina resigned herself to the idea that she would have to take Lisa's life. The investigators discussed Sabrina's testimony, and it was decided that Kevin needed to be taken into custody. So, on August 9, 2013, the 43-year-old widower was arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit aggravated murder and accessory to the crime. Sabrina agreed to testify against him in exchange for the possibility of parole after 30 years. In May 2014, the trial began, during which prosecutor Patrick Condon stated, "Of course, there's no doubt about who actually committed the murder, but Kevin knew exactly what was supposed to happen that morning of November 16th, because he was the one who helped Sabrina plan it. Therefore, he was undeniably involved in the killing." When Sabrina took the stand, she confessed to her romantic relationship with Kevin and described in detail how they had planned the crime, assuring the court that the idea had been Kevin's. She said she had only carried it out because she loved him and didn't want him to suffer. Sabrina told the jury that she hoped justice would be served because she wasn't the only one involved in this crime. To address Kevin's behavior after the murder, the prosecutor called several officials who had participated in the investigation to testify. Among them was a police officer who had met Kevin the day after the murder. According to the officer, the widower appeared surprisingly calm. The court also heard testimony from several of the victim's colleagues. One of them, a woman named Erica Gator, shared that the day after the murder, she decided to visit Kevin's home to bring food for him and his daughters, only to notice how strangely casual he was behaving. She also recalled that, at his wife's funeral, Kevin showed no emotion at all. The prosecution additionally called to the stand several people connected to insurance companies. These individuals testified unanimously that on the morning Lisa was killed, Kevin had contacted them to inquire about the documents needed to claim the insurance payout on the policy he had taken out shortly before his wife's death. During the trial, a forensic expert from Lake County, who had examined Lisa's body, testified about the horrific injuries inflicted upon her, 2 of which he believed had been fatal. He described a wound to the jaw, where the knife had pierced so deeply that it severed the carotid artery, and a chest wound. The doctor explained that the number of injuries was staggering, with some indicating that the victim had tried to fight back, suggesting that, for several minutes, Lisa struggled to survive. The investigators could not provide copies of the text messages exchanged between Sabrina and Kevin. Nevertheless, they submitted data on the volume of messages and phone calls between the two. According to the cell service records, between November 1st and November 16th, 2012, the defendants exchanged 1,491 messages and made 78 calls. Kevin's attorney, Michael Koenig, who represented his interests in court, argued that Sabrina alone should be held responsible for Lisa's murder, as investigators lacked any physical evidence proving that she and Kevin were truly romantically involved. He pointed out the absence of specific text messages in which Kevin allegedly planned his wife's murder. The only evidence presented by the prosecution, he claimed, were Sabrina's own statements, which she used to secure a reduced sentence. The attorney argued that Kevin should be released, asserting that the charges against him were baseless. He further claimed that Sabrina had killed her foster mother not at Kevin's request, but because 2 weeks prior, Lisa had demanded that she leave their home by January 1st, 2013. As for Kevin, he refused to testify in court. After a 9.5-hour hearing on June 11th, the jury found him guilty on all 11 counts. Later, on August 6, 2014, Judge Joseph Gibson sentenced him to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 30 years. Kevin will have his first chance at parole in 2044, when he will be 73 years old. The defense warned they would appeal the sentence, focusing on presenting expert testimony about Sabrina's mental health issues, claiming that these issues had driven her to commit the murder on her own. After Sabrina testified about her involvement in her foster mother's murder, the court charged her with premeditated murder with aggravating circumstances. Her attorney, Charles Graves, stated that his client would plead guilty, and Sabrina confirmed this at the August 2014 hearing. Just a few months later, on September 29th, 19-year-old Sabrina Zunich was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years, which would allow her to apply for parole in 2042 when she will be 47. Upon hearing her sentence, Sabrina broke down in tears. The judge explained that the only reason she was given a chance for parole was due to her cooperation with the investigators. Although he acknowledged that Kevin had manipulated her, using her to achieve his own goals, her crime had gone far beyond his initial plan. The judge also ordered her to pay $6 million in compensation to Lisa's 2 daughters. Today, 28-year-old Sabrina is serving her sentence at the Dayton Correctional Institution, a women's state prison in Ohio founded in 1987.